Hello, everybody, and welcome to Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, and I'm your host, PMR, and joining me, my lovely co-host, Krista, from the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast. Thank you to Krista, and please subscribe to the Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast. We have a great show for you today from Alaska. Daniel Becker, awesome researcher. We're going to get into that in just a few minutes. If this is your first time here, please subscribe, give a thumbs up, leave a comment, turn on the alert bell, subscribe to Bigfoot, Michigan Rock, Texas Front Porch on YouTube. You can find us on YouTube at Texas Front Porch and Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. We're also on Odyssey and iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and wherever podcast. You can also find us on KPNL Radio. Thank you to the lovely Selene out in Oregon for that. Don't forget, again, to subscribe to Texas Front Porch, the Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast, and yours truly, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. Don't forget, if you like the content, if you like to help support the channels, the Super Chat is open. Yes, the Super Chat is open and long after the show ends. The Super Thanks is also available for those of you that would like to participate in that. Check out our About pages on the channel to keep you updated on scheduled events and activities throughout the week. Thank you. On Mondays, don't forget, is Texas Front Porch. Texas Front Porch is on Mondays at 9 in the East. Tuesdays, Van Buren Variety. Bobby comes on at 8 in the East. Right back here with Beyond BMR at 9 in the East on Tuesday. Come check me out. It's always a great show. Jason McLean does something called Mysterious Library on Untold Radio AM. He comes on at 10 in the East. Wednesdays, Jason McLean questions everything at 9 in the East. Thursdays, right back here today, Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, 1 o'clock in the East. Tonight, the Blondes, the Booze, the Paranormal Podcast, 9 in the East. If you need a little more woo with the booze, well, you got them back on Fridays, 9 in the East, the Blondes, the Booze, and the Woos. Saturday, 3 in the East, Tex, Danielle Diva, Infamous Minds. It's about true crime, unsolved murders, or solved murders, whichever the flavor is for that week. Fantastic show. Check them out, please, on Saturdays. And don't forget, again, to subscribe to all our channels across the board. I am going to get this started and bring up the lovely Krista. Hello, Krista.
Hey, how are you?
You know how I am.
I'm much better than you today.
BMR, about 4 days ago, I am putting up a flag in my backyard. I'm about 3 feet off the ground. I'm on a ladder. I fall off the ladder. 2 years ago, I had surgery on my left leg, my knee. I had a detached tendon running from my knee to my quad muscle. So I had that taken care of. Mm-hmm. So when I fell off the ladder, Krista, I led with my left knee and it smashed into the cement below me. Now, I think nothing of this. I scraped up my knee. I felt a little twinge. And like most guys, you shake it off. And I did. A couple days go by, it's getting kind of sore, and I just figured it's sore, because of the fall. Last night, I was talking with Tex, I was talking with Jason, and I said, man, Jason, I don't know if I can do the full hour because I don't feel well, because my stomach I just didn't feel right last night, Krista.
Yeah. This
morning, I wake up, my left knee is inflamed. It's in pain, and there's my knee. You can't see my kneecap.
Wow.
I went to the emergency room, got checked in. They're pretty good, 20, 30 minutes. Doctor comes in. Well, I had an infection brewing in my knee because good old Rob tore his meniscus.
Wow.
They wanted to do surgery this morning about 6 a.m. I said, no, I can't do that. I want to wait for my regular doctor. I'm going to Las Vegas. My plane leaves at 1:30 in the morning today. And I have a show that I'm that I'm doing your show. I'm hosting your show. I said, no, we got to put this off, put it off. So I asked the doctor. So I'm supposed to have surgery tomorrow, but I'm still debating whether or not to go to Vegas for the Dave Scott space. I haven't even called Dave yet because last year I was supposed to go and I had to go to a funeral. It was a last minute thing, good family member. So I'm still 50-50, Krista. The doctor says, well, if you have surgery, you can't get on a plane because you might cause a clot in your knee. So now I'm in a quandary. I know everybody in chat is saying, Robbie, you're a dummy, get the surgery and don't get on that plane. But I've got until 1:30 in the morning today to make that decision.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, keep me posted and let me know what you do.
Well, I'll be on tonight because, again, 1:30 in the morning is when I'm supposed to leave. But yeah, he says best to stay off the knee. And I have my knee elevated and it's got to be repaired. It hurts like a gangbusters.
Yeah.
But enough of good old BMR's woes. I always like to start with something, and there's always something going on.
Yeah, that's a big something.
We've got Daniel Becker from Alaska. Mm-hmm. I've been waiting. I mean, I met this guy, over, through the intro web. Mm-hmm. Fascinating. He's a friend of Will Lunsford, Stephen Hills, and I'm going to bring him up because this is going to be a fascinating show. Making sure Daniel's ready. I'm going to pull you up. 3, 2, 1. There he is, Daniel Becker. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
How are you?
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I think, Daniel, I got a hold of you. Well, you got a hold of me. I think I had Will Lunsford on like 2 months ago. He was actually on this past Tuesday. And you're like, wow, I never seen your show. Will's an awesome researcher. I've learned a lot from Will. And you and I started talking quite a bit, online. And then I had asked you, hey, man, you're in Alaska. There's a lot of things going on in Alaska outside of, it's just a beautiful state. I can't explain enough how much I adore the place. And that's got to be in my bucket list.
Mine too.
So I'm very appreciative of you taking out your time today to join us.
Absolutely.
And for those people out in our chat that don't know about you, can you walk us through maybe a little bit of your background before we get into the meat of the subject?
Absolutely. My full name is Daniel Becker, as you know. I'm originally from Newark, Ohio. However, I went to high school in Downriver, Detroit. So most of my family and friends are back there. I am a 21-year employee with a unnamed 3-lettered federal agency. And I've been a Bigfoot researcher for several years. But like many others, I got into the topic from the In Search Of episode, seeing that as a child. That seems to be the gateway for so many people that have gotten into this field. So once I saw that In Search Of episode as a kid, I was hooked. And my grandmother told me a story of a Bigfoot that they encountered in Southern Ohio and also in back in the hollers in northern Kentucky. And when I heard those stories, that was it for me. In Search Of, my grandma kind of cemented me into this field of interest.
Gotcha. How did you end up in Alaska?
I ended up in Alaska. I'd worked up here a few summers. And when I was in high school in Michigan, I had posters of Alaska on my wall. And I was like, well, one day I'm going to go there. And so I ended up getting a couple summer jobs up here and was in Boston for a little while and decided to make the move. So that's how I ended up in Alaska.
Awesome. Good deal.
Dan, it's crazy, but not so crazy because you know how when I was a kid, yes, In Search Of, Leonard Nimoy, I was fascinated. Now, as a kid, I think that was the first time I found out about Bigfoot. And I'm a pretty open-minded guy. And as a kid. So I remember, I think it was grade school probably. And I remember going to the library looking for a Bigfoot book. Well, back then, You can't find nothing on Bigfoot. I
Right.
think I might have found something, and it was
Right.
just had nothing to. It was just like a cartoonish book, and then I stumbled upon. I now I don't recollect if the Patty video was shown in Larry Nemo. I think it was, but then I seen it. I found how I got access to it and saw it. I'm like, man, you know what? This is really something that's out there. So that's how I got started. Then I got started doing this when I had an encounter myself, and then, as you all know, boom, all it's all bars are let down, right? And you're just into it, and I've been into it ever since I had my encounter. And I imagine, you started out. How long did you live in Michigan? I wanted to ask you first.
In fact, all of high school, and also several years after that, I went to Henry Ford Community College.
Yeah.
And so quite a few years.
Oh yeah, I went to University of Michigan, and awesome time there. And it was funny because you had asked me, because you happened to see one of my videos. I did the Dogman Island video, and it was an island outside of Groseal, Michigan. And you had seen that video, and then you started saying, Rob, there's Dogman on Groseal. I said, well, no, not on Groseal. There's some island that I was sent from this guy. I did a little bit of research on it, and it was fabulous. In fact, this summer I'm going to go to that island and check it out. And then you said, wow, that's crazy. I'll keep me posted. So yeah, there's Michigan is full of cryptids, as you well know. Wexford, Michigan is the capital. In Michigan, the capital of Dogman, and my Bigfoot encounter was in Wexford County, but it was on Lake Cadillac in that area. So yeah, we got a crazy place, but Alaska. When I think Alaska, I think there's definitely some cryptids out there. Why don't we get into it a little bit?
That's the gold mine of Bigfoot.
Yeah. I want to go to Alaska. First of all, it's beautiful. I'm envious of you. I mean, Michigan is in its own right, especially northern Michigan is very beautiful as well. So, why don't you start with your research that you've been doing in Alaska, and we kind of walk us through that.
Well, most recently, the research I was conducting was up near Kotzebue, which is about 30 miles above the Arctic Circle, and Kotzebue and the satellite villages. In that case, it was in the winter, so what I was doing up there at the time was getting an opportunity to talk to the Alaskan Native people that are up there, and getting their stories. And I did get a story from an elder who was in her 90s that said, yeah, these creatures do exist, and our people have known about them for a long time, and also gave me the names that they have for Sasquatch up there, but I couldn't begin to pronounce it properly, so I'm not even going to try. But hearing the stories from the Alaska Natives is probably the most fascinating part of Alaska research.
Okay. When you hear from the natives, I hear both sides of the coin. I hear the flesh and blood, and I also hear the spiritual in nature, where protectors of the land, where a lot of the indigenous, they have communications. In fact, I know years ago you read stories about the indigenous bartering, right, trading with the settlers, but I've also heard on the same times that they're just and I don't think Bigfoot's an animal. I think it's a hybrid human of some sort, but I do believe that it's both physical and spiritual. So when you're talking with the native folks, what do you derive from them?
The first thing that has been consistent among the conversations that I've had is the great respect that they have for this creature. That has been absolutely 100% consistent. Some have a great fear of the creature, but that respect there, and there's the fear there, but the fear wasn't with everyone I talked to. Others who had heard the stories were just enthusiastic about wanting to see one themselves. And some actually had. I was talking to a gentleman who lives in a village between Barrow, Alaska, and what we call the North Slope, which is where all the oil fields are. And he was telling me that they come down sometimes from the Brooks Range up there from that mountain. Alaska has three main mountain ranges: the Brooks Range, the Alaska Range, and the Aleutian Range. And the Brooks Range is the northernmost extension of the Rocky Mountains. And up there on the North Slope, this gentleman shared with me that the Sasquatch will come out of that Brooks Range and sometimes come down there closer to the Arctic coast and near his village. So that was pretty fascinating. But they also have different names. Some of them you've probably heard. All of these. I will probably massacre the terms or the names when I say it. Like in the southeastern part of the state, it's known as the Kushtaka. In the south central, Nantiana. Horrible pronunciation. I know I got that wrong, but get the idea. And in the southwestern part of the state, they also call it the Urayuli, and it's most commonly known up here as hairy man. So if you say hairy man, everybody knows what you're talking about.
And it's much easier to say.
Yes. Alaska's history with Sasquatch goes back a long way. Obviously, the big story up here is Port Chatham from back in the 1930s. We have Prince of Wales Island in the southeast with a lot of tales from there. Also in the Lake Iliamna region, some stories about hairy man from there. The reputation that Sasquatch has in Alaska is in talking to people and talking to other researchers is far more aggressive than you would find in some areas of the lower 48, especially the Appalachians in the south.
Yeah, I've heard that the Alaskan Bigfoot's more aggressive than the ones in the lower 48. I've definitely heard that before. So where is do you go out on a regular basis and do your research, or is it just something kind of sporadically, or?
Well, it all depends on what time of year it is. Right now, we're still in our breakup period. So my main focus is going to be probably around what we call the valley, which is not too far away from Anchorage, and also down on the Kenai Peninsula. But I'm going to wait until the bears are completely full of fish in their stomachs before I go start venturing out, because obviously the bear activity is really strong up here, and you've got to be really careful. I've already had one bad bear encounter, and it's something I hope to avoid. So I'm very careful about when and where I go. In October, I'm planning on going to Cordova, which is about a 35-minute flight from Anchorage on Alaska Airlines. And years ago when I was working in Cordova, I was out in the woods there by myself. And, you'll hear people talk about having that sense of being watched, and just the hair stands up and something is watching you. And I had one of those experiences out there in Cordova. So as we get into the fall and the bears start retreating more to the higher country, I plan on going back out to Cordova and doing some full bore research out there.
Wow, good deal. Good deal.
I was going to ask you, you came up with kind of an interesting, you're a researcher, you've gone out there, you collaborate with William Lunsford, Stephen Hill. I see them both in the chat today. Hi, guys. And you guys got together. I found this interesting. This is really cool because you had sent me this about the 5 T's of Bigfoot research. And, I've never heard this before. And you brought it up. So I'm going to ask you, what When you go on your research, what is that all about? Is this something that you use every day? If you can walk us through that.
So what we call the 5 T's of Bigfoot research, and these are things that I learned from William Lunsford and Stephen Hill, and as you guys know them, they are generals as far as I'm concerned in the world of Bigfoot research, and so some of the things they taught me, and I'm still learning from them. They've been kind enough to mentor me and teach me in this field. So number one is tracks. Obviously, you're looking for tracks, but it's not just the Bigfoot tracks of your research area. They taught me that you also have to know the tracks of the animals that are in that Bigfoot research area, especially in cases of identification. You want to know what animals are around, especially in Alaska. We've got so many bear tracks, and the tracks are stepping over each other. You really need to learn those bear tracks and be able to differentiate, between them. So one of the things that they taught me was about tracks, but not just looking for the Bigfoot tracks, but also recognizing the tracks of the animals that inhabit your research area. Number 2 is trees. Watching the trees, looking for the tree breaks, looking for the twists, looking for the tree structures in your area. So that's important as well. And also, a lot of people don't think about this, but look up.
Right.
We have many accounts of people seeing Sasquatch in the trees, and so it's remembering to look up, because a lot of people don't do that. So looking for the tree breaks, looking for the twists, looking for the structures. The next one is trails. Recognizing the game trails, recognizing the trails that have been created by something randomly going through, watching the brush line, watching the tree line, looking for those access points. So they were teaching me about trails as well.
Mm-hmm.
Next one is time. Knowing the times of year when your research area has the most activity, when those creatures are moving through. Also, not just time of year, but time of day, time of night, being able to track that time where you're getting the most responses and getting the most activity. And last one is technology. Sasquatch are crafty, and you need to be crafty too. So technology is very important. We just recently introduced drones into our research on the last trip that I was down there. And that seems to be getting more popular now. So, we're always trying to break new ground in some way. So for us, we gave it a shot. And the fascinating thing with the drones down there in our research area is this was the first time that I've experienced what we have now called CEI, which is cryptid electronic interference. Mm-hmm. We've all heard the stories from other researchers where their electronics are interfered with cameras, with all that stuff. It actually happened to our drones, not just one, but both of them. And these are good DJI drones that we have. And both of them simultaneously in our research area conked out. Most of the pictures that I took didn't come out. Most of the video that I took didn't record, and for one drone, for it to happen to one drone, yeah, that's a possibility. But for it to happen to two, we simply had no explanation for that. And there have been times also in our research areas, as William and Stephen have shared, that our trail cams and recording devices have been messed with. But that was the first time in experiencing this cryptid electronic interference. So tracks, trees, trails, time, and technology are what we call the 5 T's of Bigfoot research. And when you're dealing with your cameras and stuff, it's not just game cameras. You've got to get crafty. You've got to put cameras in brush piles. You got to put cross streaming camera angle you really got to get crafty in how you do it. They are crafty, and you need to be crafty too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're very smart, and I think myself, like when you were talking about like the game trails and stuff, they know what that stuff is. Would you agree? Yeah,
absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So do you go out solo, or do you go out with a team, or?
Up here in Alaska, so far it's just been me. I've been trying to connect with other researchers up here, but that's been a bit challenging. Most of the research I've done in the last couple of years have been down in Arkansas with William and Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
Been down there several times and had some great experiences down there. We call it that research area down there. We call it Ground Zero, and it is literally the Amazon of America. I mean, you can walk in there 5 feet and vanish. As far as I'm concerned, there could be anything back there.
Wow.
I was going to ask you that again. Alaska certainly better than I do, and anybody that does any research by themselves, I give them a ton of credit. When you're coming though with Alaska, whether you live there 5 years, 20 years, 30 years, isn't that a little bit dangerous to go by yourself? Because I know, our friend Tex from Texas Front Porch, he used to do a lot of research by himself in an area that he's known for a decade. And we give him a little flack. Aren't you a little bit leery of going by yourself? Simply because a lot of, you've heard of 411, and you can, that could be anything. Doesn't that scare you a little bit? Because that's a lot of people go missing in Alaska.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it does. It is not wise to go researching up here alone. And I'm not trying to criticize anybody that does, but things can change so quickly. The weather can change so quickly up here. 1 second it's raining, the next second you're in a snowstorm. But also you have to be cognizant of the wildlife, especially the bears. You've got black bears, you've got grizzly bears, but you also have moose. And getting trampled by a moose is also a risk. And you'd think that you'd be able to see them, but they're you literally can walk around the corner and they're right there.
Wow.
And so you have to be cognizant of that. It's in Alaska. It's, in my opinion, it's very unwise to go research by yourself. It's so many things can happen so quickly. And in addition, as you mentioned, the 411, a lot of people go missing.
Yeah.
It can be very dangerous.
Yeah. While we're on that subject, Rob, you actually had a question for Daniel about that. If I can find it here real quick.
Okay. And while she's looking, thank you to Amy for the super chat, and thank you for Anella for the super chat. Love you guys. I do appreciate your support of the show.
Yeah. Anella, she asked Daniel, with there being an unusual amount of people that go missing in Alaska, do you think Bigfoot is responsible for a great number of those disappearances?
Well, as we mentioned, Sasquatch up here does have a reputation for being very aggressive. It's quite possible that is occurring. So I wouldn't discount it.
Sure.
But and again, you're dealing with, even in Anchorage, you can go 5 minutes outside of Anchorage, and you can literally go hundreds of miles after that without seeing another human being.
Wow.
And for those that venture into the backcountry by themselves, even the avid hikers, you're always taking a risk. There's that risk factor. So I believe it is quite possible that Sasquatch, an aggressive clan of Sasquatch, could be responsible for some of the disappearances.
Wow.
I've often heard too, like throughout, I've been doing this now for a couple of years. I've spoken to many people, and you always come across a lot of the stories, which are great. It's the friendly forest giant, the peekaboo, the hide and seek guy. Leave him alone, he'll leave you alone. But when it comes to Alaska, I think that's got to be flip-flop. You mentioned they're a lot more aggressive, because I tell you what, I don't have data to support this. I'd have to imagine, with Alaska being so vast, so much uncharted territory. There's got to be not even just Bigfoot alone, but cryptids that just have to be
Right.
bigger than you might see in the Pacific Northwest or in Michigan or Ohio or Pennsylvania, just because the abundance of food, you've got everything, you've got rivers, streams, lakes. So to me, I think they would be tend to be a little more ticked off at a human being coming through their area, invading their
Yeah.
space where they live.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember a Yupik gentleman, Alaska Native that I was speaking to. The first thing he said to me was, "Big. They're huge. They're huge." And yeah, they definitely, like I said, they have that reputation for being aggressive.
Right. Yeah.
And you're dealing with these different clans up here, and again, this is things that have been told to me by different people. In my line of work, I deal with a lot of hunters, and also their stories are of great interest to me as well. Like, what have you experienced out there moose hunting, out there bear hunting? And most of the hunters I've talked to have said that any signs of tracks or what they believe to be tracks have been up rivers. Again, we're going back to that river thing. You'll hear Bigfoot researchers talk about rivers. It's up rivers. They seem to have a lot of encounters up the different rivers in Alaska, the Russian, the Kenai.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rob. Go ahead.
It's okay. Really quickly, you and I, Danny, we were talking maybe a month ago or whatever, and we are kind of talking about Michigan, and I was mentioning to you that there's a lot of waterways. I mean, we were talking about the Huron River waterway system runs through Michigan from where I live all the way through Ann Arbor, and you and I came up with the same conclusion, and this is not, if you're into this subject, you know what we're talking about. They travel from where there's water or rivers, that's a traveling way, right? Even power lines, a travel way, right? So I'd imagine with the abundance that you have, that's where you probably do a lot of your research, right in those areas.
Yes. As far as Michigan goes, my area of interest is I should be back in Michigan in October. So a couple areas that I'm going to be looking at is that I-75 corridor between West Branch and Midland. That's one area that I want to go to up there and look around. Also, because I'm from Southeast, Michigan, I take especially interest in that. So along the Huron River into Monroe County, in that area, as well as, and I've looked a little bit around Flat Rock area and that place, but those are two areas of interest that I want to hit in October when I'm back there.
Yeah, we'll have to hook up, I think, for that, because the places you mentioned, Midland, and what was the other? You said Midland and
West Branch.
West Branch is, from what I understand, not that I know personally, loaded. A lot of reports I've got.
Wow. Very cool.
Yeah, that West Branch down to middle of that I-75 corridor there, as well as the Huron River that goes on, as you know, goes on into Monroe County. There are two areas that I want to hit when I'm back there.
You have sent me some pictures, which I'm going to show here in a little bit. But when you're out in the field, when you're out there doing some research, have you come across and physically seen a Sasquatch, or were you just knew? Because you mentioned something earlier about all the wildlife, the big grizzlies, the bears, the moose. And a lot of people do misidentify a lot of things, and it's understandable, whether you were a researcher or not, 10 years, 15 years, or a novice. When you've seen something, though, did you know for a fact it was a Bigfoot, or did you have some speculation that maybe it was a moose's rear end, which could be 6 foot high off the ground?
Right.
Yeah, actually, you hit the nail right there. One time I did see some movement that I thought was a Sasquatch, and it turned out to be a gigantic moose, which I discovered minutes afterwards when they came rocking out of the brush. And they, you'd think these creatures are so big, but they can disappear so quickly. So they just go, and I saw a section of brown, and I thought, oh my gosh, maybe that's a Sasquatch right there, and then I found out really quickly that it wasn't. So yeah, I did. Misidentification is quite possible, and does happen. One of the things that William and Stephen taught me as they were mentoring me in this field was that not everything is a Sasquatch. Not every tree break is a Sasquatch. Not every sound is a Sasquatch. And Stephen is the audio guy of the group, so he gets a lot of audio. So they were also teaching me about learning the sounds of the animals in your research area, learning to tell the difference between a coyote and a wolf, and even the sounds that foxes make, so I really appreciated that as well. But yeah, I have misidentified up here, and it turned out to be a giant moose.
What I love about you too is, what you just brought up, you should, any research, you've got to know what these sounds are. The wolf, the coyote, the grunt of the deer, the moose, the elk, even the little rodents, squirrels, chipmunks, whatever you have running through, you got to know what they sound like and what their footfall sounds like running about, right?
Yes.
And have you had, now with that being said, because you're pretty well versed in that and you're learning every day like everybody is, have you ever heard any vocalization where you couldn't pinpoint? And I'm not saying to suggest it's even a Bigfoot or a cryptid, but has there been any vocalizations where you sat back and said, you know what? I can't identify that.
One time here in Alaska, and I was about 30 miles outside of Anchorage, and I was this was before my bad bear encounter. I was out on a trail, and I did hear a vocalization that I could not identify, and I didn't. It wasn't enough to get me to back up down the trail. But I just remember going down the trail and thinking, my goodness, what is that sound? And of course now knowing what I know now, I would probably say it's about a 90% chance that was a Sasquatch. On my last trip down to Arkansas with Stephen and William, I actually for the first time heard a loud Sasquatch vocalization to where there was no question. And that made the trip for me.
Wow. On the lines of the misidentification, how many we were talking about how the Sasquatch are more aggressive there. How many of those do you think could actually be maybe mistaken for like a Gugway, who is extremely aggressive,
Right. Very possible. Very possible. I haven't heard a lot in that area, but I wish I could give you a better answer than very possible, but it is quite possible.
Amy, good buddy, good friend of mine here in chat, keeps asking the question. So before I forget, because actually, thanks, Krista, you started, and I like to get into this. Hey, Daniel, have you question for Daniel. Have you seen or heard of the Kushtikas? Is that an actual hairy man or different? And then that's why she wonders about what we were just talking about the Kushtika. And I believe it's an oversized, a cryptid otter, from what I can recall. That I know that are prevalent in. I don't know, but I've heard about them from the gentleman we had on. Who was that, Krista? It was again. I brought it up earlier. Pedikov.
Yeah, Alexander
Pedikov thought that he experienced that in Alaska as well. So thanks for the question, Amy.
It depends on who you talk to. I've heard both. So obviously, I can only go by what people have shared with me, and and I particularly remember one Alaska Native lady referring to it as the Kushtaka, and that was her word for it. But yeah, it all depends on who you talk to.
And another point too, if I remember talking, is the Kushika the one? And Amy maybe can answer this, or you guys. Don't they make the sounds of a baby? They emulate a child or the crying of a baby to draw you in, especially if women are around. Because I heard with the Kushika, they'll make a sound of a baby again to lure women
Right.
to them. I wonder if you've heard about that, because I've heard that story many times, and I've heard
Yeah.
primarily in Alaska.
I've read about accounts, but no one's actually shared that part with me as having experienced it.
Yeah.
And
Real
it's
quick,
just something to throw out there. I mean, that's why I'm asking. But that's
I'm not
interesting.
I'm not real familiar with Alaska except for the beautiful pictures I see. So I'm in Missouri, and we have a lot of caves here, and people believe that these creatures, could travel through our cave systems. Is there caves in Alaska as well, or where they could possibly travel like that? Or
There are, but I haven't heard any accounts of the cave systems here as far as traveling through them. The stories I've heard about that have mostly been like in the Appalachians and
right.
in your part of the country as well. But I've been pretty far out into the wilderness, and it's amazing some of the things that you'll find out there. There's so, I mean, as you know, they call it the last frontier up here. And it is just an unexplored wilderness that people from the lower 48 often don't comprehend until they get up here. Tourists have approached me and have been like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize, that, the wilderness just goes on and on and on in the landscape so quickly. And it really is an amazing place.
Yeah.
Again, I'd love to go to Alaska. I appreciate what you do out there, and going by yourself. Even I do have respect for that. Whether it's crazy or not, I still respect it. And I know you do this quite often. Where can you walk us through some more of your experiences that you've had, whether you've had a study or not? It's immaterial, just the experiences that you've just had in this vast land. Because I know everybody likes a good story.
Well, I guess first, one of the experiences I've had being out there is the bad bear encounter. So I'll tell you the story about the bad bear encounter real quick.
Please.
Yeah.
So I was on a trail not far outside of Anchorage. We have some glaciers that are not far away from here. One's called Portage Glacier, and there's some smaller secondary glaciers out there. These particular trails are very well traveled in the summer. They're ones that tourists can get to easily. So unfortunately, where there are a lot of tourists, they bring their food with them. And when they bring their food with them, they drop their food. And so this is like a beacon for bear activity that want to come in and pick up those scraps.
Sure.
So I was on one of the trails out there going towards the glacier. It's a well-hiked trail, made it out there, no problem. There's a lot of people out there. On the way back, I heard something moving in the brush, and I stopped, and I actually had a coworker with me at the time. We stopped, and we were looking towards the brush, and we saw brush moving, but we didn't see anything. And again, as big as a bear is, you would think that you'd be able to immediately spot them, but as in moose, they just vanish into this brush, and they're on you in a second. So we watched as the brush moved back and forth, and we waited, and we didn't see anything. And so we saw some birds back there, and we thought, maybe it's birds. So I turned, and my coworker was in front of me, and all I could describe it is as an audible voice in my head said, "Turn around." And when I turned around, about 15 yards away, at a dead stare with me, was I'm going to estimate 250-pound to 300-pound black bear. And one of the things about black bears is that they will stalk you.
Wow.
They will actually stalk you. And if they go after if you get attacked by a grizzly, a brown bear, if you play dead and shield yourself, you might live, you might survive, and they'll, you're not going to come out of there unscathed, but you might live. Now, a black bear, they always tell you up here, if a black bear attacks you, you fight for your life because they are going to try to eat you. So when I turned around about 15 yards away was this giant black bear, and him and I are at a dead stare, and he's not moving and I'm not moving. And so fortunately, I never go out without a firearm. So I had a rifle with me, and I aimed that rifle at its head. And, of course, they're telling you yell and scream and do all that stuff. And so we were yelling, we were screaming, we're doing everything they tell you to do. And the bear was not moving.
Wow.
And I had already made the decision that if this bear moves another inch, then, I'm going to send it to heaven. But we were yelling, we were screaming, we're trying to get it to back off. It's not backing off. We're not backing off. Now I've got the rifle at point blank range at its head. And somebody's going to have to move. And this, looking back on it now, it probably wasn't a wise idea, but we started backing off, around a curve, which was really dumb because we could no longer see the bear, and it could have shot right through.
Sure.
Shot right through the brush and got us. So we ended up backing up, and more people were coming up the trail. We said, hey, don't go up there. There's a bear up there. And of course, they turned right around, and we got back to the trailhead. And other people, even though we told other people, we told tourists, hey, there's a bear up there. But to them, that's a photo op. They weren't grasping the seriousness of the situation.
Right.
And so up the trail they went, and then back they came, but and again, in doing that Sasquatch research up here, if for those that want to come up here and undertake that, and more power to you, I highly encourage you to do it, but be cognizant that there are two main things that will kill you up here: wildlife and weather, the two W's. So that was my most memorable encounter with the wildlife, in addition to the misidentification of the moose, which came out of the brush. I've talked to people who've been attacked by bears up here, and they've basically told me the same thing, which was we never even saw it coming. It was just so fast, and that even though they had guns, they didn't have time to react. So now when I'm in the woods after that encounter, that bear encounter scared me so much that when I'm on a trail here now, I am like a soldier at the ready. I've got the gun in hand, and I am just scanning everywhere, because that's what it traumatizes you, know. And I mean, when the Lord calls me home, it is not going to be in the jaws of a bear.
Right.
That is not a way I want to go out.
I don't think so either, because I came across some grizzly attacks on YouTube that I turned them off, and I can I can stomach anything. But I did want to ask you though, because you're talking about the black bear. Black bears here in Michigan, you don't hear much about attacks, but I also heard though in Alaska, Daniel, the brown bear is pretty menacing in its own right. Is that incorrect?
No, definitely it is. There's a saying up here in Alaska that we say, don't get treadwelled. And for those who are familiar with that documentary, it's about a gentleman named Timothy Treadwell who went out to Kodiak and decided that he was going to be friends with the bears and humanize them and give them all names. So he ended up paying the price for that. So there's a saying up here said, don't get treadwelled. And that specifically relates to the brown bears.
Here in Michigan, there's a statement we say, don't get treadwelled, meaning he's a kicker in the NFL that you don't want either because he'll never hit a field goal. For those of you sports fans out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I definitely learned something today because I had no idea about black bears, that I always, you hear of Alaska, it's the grizzlies, that you have to really watch out for, that the black bears, at least here, they're non-aggressive.
And they can climb trees, correct?
Absolutely. Even in Anchorage, the black bears are a danger. We get people in the parks that go out there and they'll put their earbuds in. They'll put their little earbuds in and just go down that trail or biking down that trail, not even thinking about a bear attack. And the next thing you know, they're getting mauled.
Wow.
So unfortunately, we've had a couple deaths in the last few years. Very tragically, one was a 17-year-old boy who had done a mountain race up one of the mountains not far outside of Anchorage, and his parents had just completed the adult race and he was doing the teen race, and unfortunately a black bear killed him during that race. It was very tragic.
Yeah, very much so.
Boy. Yeah. I'm loving this show so much. I know we were mixing in just Alaska and Bigfoot, but I could talk just Alaska about the wildlife itself and the nature and the beauty. Yeah. I could do a whole show just on that. And a lot of things you've presented today are fascinating. We're coming up on the 5-minute break, and we do have some pictures that you've sent over, which I found to be very cool, which we'll go over and get a little bit more back on topic with more about Bigfoot. Although I could talk, as I said, Alaska all day. I really, again, respect what you do, Daniel. I'm so appreciative of you coming on in. So we're going to have to take the 5-minute break. Thank you to Anella and Amy for your awesome super chats. Thanks to everybody that's following and subscribing. We got to come back. Don't go nowhere. Get your coffee. Get your Coca-Cola. I got to stretch this leg out because it's kind of killing me. Those of you that missed it, I got a situation, and it's kind of throbbing at this moment. I just got to see, I'm not even on my game here. I got to find the 5-minute break. There it is. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
4 minutes to go, folks. 4 minutes. Three minutes. We're almost there. 2-minute warning, guys. 2-minute warning. One minute. 1 minute.
Thank you one and all for joining us. Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rabbits, 1 o'clock. It starts at 1 o'clock, of course, every Thursday. Excuse me for that. Awesome show. Daniel Becker is with us from Alaska, Alaskan researcher for Bigfoot. And, you know, as I mentioned, so I'm off my game a little bit. Those that are joining later, I fell off my ladder a few days ago. I tore my meniscus. I was supposed to have surgery today, but I said the show must go on, so I put it off. And I'm supposed to go to Las Vegas tonight at 1:30 in the morning. Catch that red eye for the Dave Scott fan party. So that's up in the air. My surgery is scheduled for tomorrow, so my knee is killing me, but the show does go on. I love you guys. Thanks for coming on in. And don't forget, on Mondays is Texas Front Porch, 9 o'clock in the East. Tuesdays, Van Buren Variety, 8 o'clock in the East. Beyond BMR, 9 o'clock in the East. Jason McLean does something 10 in the East called Mysterious Library on Untold Radio AM. Check out Jason. Jason comes right back on Wednesdays at 9 in the East with Jason McLean Questions Everything. Thursdays back here with me and Krista. Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. Don't forget to subscribe to the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast. In fact, I'll be hosting that show tonight as well. See, I'm just a trooper. I am a trooper. Fridays, you want some woos with the booze, the Blondes, the Booze, the Paranormal Podcast with the woo tonight on Friday, excuse me. Tex, Danielle Diva, Saturday, 3 to East. Infamous Minds, it's true crime, infamous murder mysteries, unsolved mysteries. That's a new drop. They've got about 4 shows out. That is fantastic. Again, subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube, Texas Front Porch on YouTube, the Blondes, the Booze Paranormal Podcast on YouTube, Jason McLean Questions Everything on YouTube, and our buddy Bobby Van Buren. And we're streaming on all 3 platforms, including the Booze, Text, and, of course, BMR. Love you all. Thanks for the super chats from Manila and Amy. Love you. I love you all. It's not about the money. You like, you share, you subscribe, you watch, you share it out. That's most important to me to grow the channel. I'm going to bring up Krista and Daniel. Again, Daniel, thank you for taking your time out of the day, man, because I couldn't wait for this. 2 months ago, we set this up. And that's why I'm here. I'm not under the knife today because of you, Daniel. I just want you to know that.
I appreciate that. Another thing I could throw in about the bears and Sasquatch is
please.
from one of the Alaska natives who was kind enough to share their thoughts with me. I asked them, I said, who wins in a fight, hairy man or the 1,000-pound grizzly bear? And the person said, oh, hairy man by far. Hairy man by far.
Wow.
Again, with the Alaska natives here, it's to some, it's such a sacred topic. And as we find with other tribes in the lower 48. Sure. Here in Alaska, there are 227 federally recognized tribes, and there are 20 Alaska native languages here. Each different tribes have different names for Sasquatch, obviously. But some Alaska natives are willing to share their stories with you, and others, it's such a sacred topic that they prefer to keep it private.
Mm-hmm. Wow. What are your views on like dogmen? Do you ever encountered anything you thought up there in Alaska that might be dogmen?
I have not heard any stories about dogmen in Alaska. I have asked people, but the people I have spoken to didn't have any experience with that, or they hadn't heard any stories about that. Now down in Arkansas, doing research with William and Stephen, I wasn't really sold on the whole dogman thing, to be honest with you, at the beginning. But after being out with William and Stephen, after seeing some of the images on the cameras and seeing the tracks, now I've changed that opinion. Now I believe that creature does exist, and the research down in Arkansas was what tipped the scales for me on that topic.
Wow. Okay.
Thank you, Sugar Britches, for the amazing super chat, and thanks for the sugar for text as well. I love you, Sugar. Yep. Thank you so much. It is appreciated across the board. Thanks to everybody for joining us today and for the amazing super chats. And you mentioned the hairy man. I remember coming across the story of Daniel Boone. Daniel Boone, he had a hairy man or a wild man encounter, and he described it as it just appeared. He was in the back of a log. He lined up his sights, fired something, didn't know what it was, and when it approached him, it was like a big man with long hair. And when you think hairy man, you don't think. Of course, back in the day, that's what they called it. And until today, as you've mentioned today, Daniel, it's still called that with some Native Americans and the Indigenous. But hairy man, to me, doesn't sound as powerful as Bigfoot or Sasquatch, right? So when I remember reading that story, I'm like, yeah, really, that scared you off? Because I think if he even explained it, it wasn't a big, overpowering beast. He thought it was literally a human being that was just a wild man of the woods.
Yeah. And I've heard of reports that people, are armed and they see it. It looks so human-like they can't pull a trigger, So. Right.
Mm-hmm. In addition to Sasquatch, the other two phenomena that I hear about the most are, believe it or not, mermaids.
Really?
Up on the Arctic coast, up in Barrow specifically. Some people up there shared with me some stories about mermaids and the stories they heard growing up, and also little people. That's another story that I've heard several times in Alaska.
Wow.
In fact, someone sent me a photo of some tracks on a beach. And again, this is going back to that between Barrow, Alaska and Prudhoe Bay, the North Slope. And it was a small village along there, and they found little tracks along the beach. Sent me a picture of that. Coincidentally, this is not far from the area where the other gentleman told me the story about the Sasquatch coming down from the Brooks Range and coming in there.
Wow. Yeah, there's all kinds of beings out there, I believe.
Yeah, so those are in addition to Sasquatch, those are stories that I've been hearing.
Yeah. how close are you to Port Chatham?
Port Chatham is, let's see, for me, it would be a several hour drive and then another long boat ride.
Gotcha.
But Port Chatham is gotten a lot more attention over the last several years, especially with all the TV shows, and now people are taking an interest in it. And from people that I'm talking to, saying it's more difficult now to get to go out there, because of all the attention now that's being brought on.
Right.
But,
Right.
Gotcha. People have T-shirts up here that say "Ask me about Port Chatham" on it.
Wow. So it's become a tourist.
Yeah. So so people are starting to ask questions. They've seen the TV shows, and it's generated a lot more interest. So obviously, a lot more people want to go out there, if not for the Sasquatch, than to just see the abandoned town.
Yeah. Yep. Makes sense. I'd like to go.
I would too. If I can get the right connections, maybe I can get out there.
There you go. And then come back and we'll do another show on brunch.
Yeah. Another thing I'll share before I forget. Several years ago, I had the opportunity to talk to somebody who was in a executive level position in one of the other federal agencies here that oversees some of this wilderness. And I tried to pry information out of that individual about Sasquatch. And this person had also worked at high levels in other Western states, long career. And I could not get that guy to say anything. He literally put his head down and said, "I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it." But I tried. But
that's very common.
Yeah.
I'm downloading a couple of these photos. Why finish that up? Why do you think that is, in your opinion? Why I get stories like this? I've done stories. I've had people on, researchers, experiencers, and they'll come across a DNR agent, representative, a person, with the interior of the defense, or the interior of the interior Department of the Interior. And why do you think they're so? And that these guys, forest and park rangers, they've come across cryptids.
Yep.
Why do you think it is that they tell you no, you misidentified that for an elk, a moose, or whatever? Why do you think that is? Because of the economy, or do you think because of they don't want people running through the parks looking for these things?
I think, in me personally, I think it's both. I think big corporate is probably the main one, unfortunately. And then secondary would be, as you mentioned, the attention that it's going to attract. In my opinion, if the government were to come out and admit the existence of these creatures, the economic impacts to the paper industry, for example, lumber industry, could be significant. So I think those are the two main reasons. But the world is changing. The world is changing every day. We've seen the last few years, the government is finally coming out to talk about unidentified aerial phenomenon.
Sure.
What was a off the collar joke subject years ago among conspiracy theorists has now become mainstream. I mean, when you've had Tucker Carlson on there talking, so who knows what the future holds? Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. So I'm going to go through a couple of these pictures here. A couple are you share with Will. And again, I thought I had download, but today with this, what happened to me today, I was running rampant all day up until showtime. This is.
Oh, wow.
Well, let me back up for a minute. I want to show this one first. It's the same picture, but not colorized.
Right.
Was this yours or Will's? I forget, because I know I had Will on earlier this week.
This was one that I took.
Okay.
William and I can't remember if Stephen was with us on this particular one, but William and I were just coming out of the woods in the area that William and Stephen have called Ground Zero. That's our main research area. And I started taking random pictures of the tree line very quickly in rapid succession, because as researchers, we know if we're going to be observed, it's going to be from that tree line.
Yep.
So I started taking rapid succession pictures, and when we got up to the logging road there and started going through those photos and zooming in, that's when we saw that face there. So we immediately sent that picture to a photographer in Anchorage, professional photographer, and from a company called Ace Photography. And she was able to apply filters to it. And again, we don't take the approach that everything is a Sasquatch. We gotta scrutinize and filter. And so we sent the picture to a photographer up in Anchorage who added some different filters to it and took a closer look at it, told us that, yeah, whatever is there, and it's not vanishing with the additional filtration that I'm applying to it. So also later on, William had to go back and actually go and look at that area closer to make sure that it wasn't a tree, so yeah, this is probably one of the best photos that
it is.
In fact, it is the best photo that we've gotten since I was with them. But so it also got some interest from author and commentator L.A. Marzulli, who was kind enough to speak to William and I on the phone, and he had good things to say about the photo. But yeah, when you look at it from a distance, it looks like a gorilla. It looks like a gorilla sitting in the woods, but the photo is completely legitimate.
Oh yeah,
and really fascinating.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. It is, but here's the same one. I think a little color was added.
I mean, literally, you can see like the lips, the eyes, the nose.
Yeah,
you can see everything right there.
You can see
everything.
The brow ridge, the eye sockets, the mouth, and nose, everything.
That's a great picture.
There are others who have examined this photo and they say they see other creatures in it. But yeah, that's the main thing. Wow. So we were very fortunate enough to get that.
Wow, fantastic capture.
Here's one here. Crouched down, something crouched down. You got the arrow over to it. If you can walk us through this one.
So this photo was one of our drone photos. Again, both drones were not cooperating on this trip. We believe it to be linked to the CEI, the Cryptid Electronic Interference. This was one of the few photos that actually came out, and yeah, we were again. This is in Ground Zero in Arkansas there, and that one we weren't quite sure what that was, and I was not able to get the drone to lower the elevation on that to get a closer look, but whatever it is, we don't have an explanation for it, but there's obviously something there.
There is something there. And the first thing that came to my mind, you mentioned about the dog man. You don't think you've seen one or whatever, come across one. I tell you what, and again, everybody processes photos differently. When I look at this, if you look at, I see a head. Now it looks like the back is towards us, but on the right, I can really see like an ear standing up, almost like a wolf ear. I mean, that's just me that's just me process. I'm not saying what it is or isn't, but that's what I derive when I look at it.
Yeah, I do know there are dogmen in that area. And I was looking for bear tracks also. Obviously, I'm pretty good at spotting bear tracks after my experience, but I didn't see any bear tracks in the area. I didn't see any bear scat in the area, but it is quite possible that's a dogman.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, I don't know, and it could be a bear too. We just don't. Again, this is pretty cool. I can definitely see something here.
So this photo was taken on the last trip, and This is when we actually had Robin McCrae on the phone with us as we were going through the woods, and she was kind of giving us some pointers and directions and stuff, and so I've learned to really look into the dark areas and start snapping pictures. And we've got a lot of pictures. A lot of them don't have anything in them, but some of them do. And this was one of those pictures. Again, you see what looks like a possible face and an outline.
Yeah, I mean, you can see these, and again, everything's possible. Not saying it is or isn't. I know where your stance is, but from me, I mean, I can see where I can see a head with two eyes and a mouth. I can see shoulders and arms and possible legs, but you just don't know. But again, it's something that it's worth discussing, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
and it could be nothing. We don't know, but certainly we don't. You don't know.
And when William and Stephen and I go back there, we're not on trails. We are off trail. We are going through that forest and through that brush and through those horrible Arkansas, what we call in Michigan, prickers. The sticker bushes. So this is all off-road stuff.
Wow.
Okay, moving on to this here.
That's another close-up of that drone picture.
Okay. Will Moore's okay. That's what I was thinking myself. And I can still see it. I can almost see something. It's just so hard to make out sometimes.
Yeah.
But again, it's worth taking the photo and discussing it. And here is that okay, now you're standing here. You're probably what, 100 yards away on this?
A little bit closer, but yeah, I believe this is the distant photo of the
the other one
that showed. Yeah.
Okay. Here's one that looks pretty sweet.
Oh wow.
I mean, look at that. That is like human, dude. The heel is like way down by your right, and I mean,
right.
Did you get a measurement on that? And I can see distinctly. I can see 1, 2, 3, 4 toe. I mean, that is huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah, that's my foot there before I got the snake boots.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty good find right there. And again, ground zero is Sasquatch Central. It's not uncommon to find large tracks, and this track is not very far from where we got the face photo.
Gotcha.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. Well, you can put 2 and 2 together. You never know. I mean, could have been the same. Right. That's pretty sweet. I mean, I like that. It's very distinctive. A lot of people say track prints. When they're so distinctive like that, I really love those like that. And again, these are random. And here's another one here. I don't know what this is.
So this is another one of the few drone photos that came out. This was just a picture of one of the off-road research sections. What you're seeing, that little square there, is an actual mirror, and this mirror is near one of the trees that food is placed, and that mirror has actually been picked up, tossed around, thrown in the brush. And again, this is not on trails. You have to walk way back through horrible sticker bushes and marshy stuff and snakes and brush and to get to this place. So that's one of the reasons I sent the drone up there first. But but that's just one of the things that William and Stephen keep near that food tree.
Going back to the last picture with the foot, Jojo asks if you had a chance to, or if you measured this and approximately how big this is, this track.
I don't think we measured that one. We were off doing some scouting, but I'm estimating it to be 18
Yeah, I was about to say it's at least easily 18.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
What I find interesting mostly about this, if you look at the toes, not as wide as you typically see in a track, they seem a little more narrow, perhaps. But then you see a bigger left toe, and on the right,
Hmm.
maybe a missing baby toe. But like the two for sure up top seem a little narrow, and that of course could be because of not the impression wasn't firmly implanted. And again,
Yeah.
it's track through dry brush. It looks like.
William in chat says he went back. It was 22. So I'm assuming 22.
22.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Thanks, William.
Mhm.
This we've seen this, and we got, and this is looks like it's just your research area here. Actually, I see something. To be honest with you, I just seen something right between the twigs,
Yeah.
right in
This
that
is
tree in the center.
this is that face photo again.
Oh, yep. See,
There it is.
I see that. Yeah,
Good eye, Rob. Good
I
eye.
saw that right off the bat. See, I know my stuff. That's the same one, eh? Yeah, look at
Yep.
that. I'm getting that trained eye, I think. Wow.
I think
Yeah.
so. I think so. Yeah, that's truly fascinating. And actually, L.A. Marzulli used this photo at the last year's Hocking Hills conference. That's one of the reasons that William and I talked to him on the phone. He was asking if he could use that picture, and we're like, absolutely, no problem.
That's pretty cool stuff, man. Again, I mean, what I love about that picture is just it's one of the best I've seen. A lot of people in the chat have commented they're like, I can see like, whoa. I
Yep.
mean, yeah, because there's a wow. I mean, I'm just looking in the chat.
Yeah.
They're really loving that, and that is that's a very good picture.
Yeah, we were very fortunate to get that. And again, it's if you're being observed, it's going to be most likely from that tree line. So, and I've heard other people criticize, well, if you're just taking random photos, then that's not legitimate, but if it works, it works.
Right.
Well, I can see people saying that, but I got to tell you, we mentioned Robin McCrae. She's been on my show several times. I've talked to her in person many times. And, and she has said, what, one of the best ways where she gets images or captures is she'll stand outside the tree line. And she uses a cell phone, but she'll take the cell phone, and then she'll kind of like randomly make circle gestures all about, and just start firing off pictures. Now, obviously, sometimes you get nothing, and sometimes you might get a capture. But the reason she says she likes doing that is because Sasquatch, obviously, they don't like to be photoed. I mean, we know that. I mean, they don't want to be seen for the most part. Certain instances when they want to let you see them, because I believe that they want you to see them. And if you capture something, like she said, if it's just random, because if you're focused on an area with a camera and a Sasquatch is there, they're not going to let you take a picture. And we didn't even talk about the energy. You get the blob squatch because they let out this energy, which is why you get the battery drainage. You get the blob squatch. But she said if you generally circle the tree line randomly and just start snapping things off, and if you know it's a hot spot for Bigfoot or Sasquatch, you're bound to capture something. And she says that the random shots often work for her more so than just having a still photo where you're zoomed in on something. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. William has been very fortunate, and Stephen, to be able to get some photos where they actually saw the target of the photo, and got some really good photos of some creatures. I find the random stuff very effective, and again, on all the trips that I've been on with Stephen and William, I have taken that camera and I shot the tree line, and we're talking lots of pictures, lots of shots. Also, when we're walking through the woods, I'm taking pictures behind me, to the sides. I'm just shooting everywhere, because that these creatures are there. They're watching you, and they don't want to be seen.
Sure.
So random photos are a good technique. to catch a creature on film or on digital.
Wow.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sugar and Rocky, for your awesome super chats. And I got to ask you, we're coming up to the close pretty soon here. Now you work with two great men, William Lunsford, Stephen Hill. If they're still out there, you guys, love you guys. Hey, Red Creek Mafia. Great researchers, respect the hell out of them. They've both been on my shows many times. Well, Stephen once, and now you. So you've been doing this for some time, and William says you're an up and comer, and I believe it speaks for itself with this interview today.
Mhm.
So I'm going to ask you always the tough question: Sasquatch, flesh and blood, the woo combination, because you hear from the indigenous, most of them are spiritual or supernatural, and then you get your staunch, it's nothing but an ape, which I don't agree with at all, but maybe some sort of hybrid humanoid. So where do you stand today? Because let me tell you something. Since 2018, for me, when I had my first encounter, I flip-flop all the time. I'm a combination of the woo and physical. What's your thoughts?
Well, I get asked this question a lot from people who are not involved in the field of study like we are. But one thing I will say is that, and I have to say this for anyone who might be watching who is new to this area, don't speak in absolutes. Nobody really knows. Nobody really knows what Sasquatch is. Everybody has theories, but
and really quickly, when someone says they're an expert, goodbye. And that's my 2 cents.
Agreed.
Absolutely. And the important thing, for us is to be respectful and open-minded of everyone's beliefs, and treat them respectfully. So for me and for William and Stephen, we've kind of narrowed it down to like the 5 most common that we hear. The 5 most common, what is Sasquatch that we hear are number 1, probably North American primate. Number 2 is Nephilim connection from Genesis 6, a kind of a watered down descendant of the Nephilim. We heard North American primate, we heard Nephilim connection. Number 3, one that we hear often is an ancient people or tribe. Some refer to as the forest people, different terms for it, but ancient people or tribe. Number 4 would probably be an extraterrestrial. There are those that believe that this creature is an extraterrestrial. And number 5 would be probably the interdimensional hybrid spiritual side of the house. So for me personally, I kind of teeter-totter back and forth, a little bit between North American primate and Nephilim connection. And their size and their massive strength, I can certainly see both of those arguments having validity. So for me, I'm kind of back and forth between the North American primate and Nephilim connection. But I have friends who completely believe other things, what these creatures could possibly be, and that's totally fine and totally okay. And what bothers me a lot is hearing people in the Bigfoot community. Some of the people in the Bigfoot community, they're some of the nicest people I've met, but they can also be pretty nasty, in criticizing each other. So,
yeah, I mean, I know several people that if you mention the word Nephilim, they'll be all up your behind, which, here's the way I view it with anybody that comes on this show or any show that I'm associated with, or if I talk to someone, I respect everybody's theory or opinion, researcher or non-researcher, and I will listen to their arguments, and that's the way I think it should be, because first of all, we're not experts. We don't even know. I mean, there's so much out there we don't know about. I mean, my theory could be all wet. Your theory could be all wet, because what do we really know? What we do know is this: there's something out there that exists. We know that they, from experience, that they can metamorphose into something else. We know that they can shapeshift. We know that they can cloak. I mean, from personal experience, I know this.
Right.
Other people might not have seen this. It also comes on the person's personal experience.
Right.
But if somebody says they're an ape and nothing more, then I have no use for you. Or if somebody says, hey, I just think they're a ghost, or if they're just,
Demon. I hear demon a
demon,
lot.
I've got no use for you. Now, if you want to give me good reasons, but combine everything, then okay, then I'm going to listen to you. But I think too many people, and you get this a lot from the people, Ron Moorhead, that's why I love talking about Ron Moorhead. When I interviewed him on my show 30 years ago, he said, Rob, if you came to me and said a Sasquatch was part of the woo, or it could cloak, or this and that, I would turn you around and send you on your way, because I was a staunch believer in the aper theory. He goes, now, after 60 years of research, he believes that they have supernatural abilities. He put out that book, The Quantum Bigfoot. He believes that they convert their mass into energy. That's why they can travel from point A to point B in a millisecond. That's why they can disappear and reappear. But he also thinks that there is a flesh and blood part of it, but they just have things that we just don't understand. And I'm with him. But what I love about him is he took off the blinders after 25 years and decided, with all his amounts of research, this is what he comes to. Now, I can go with somebody like that. I don't like the person. I can't respect the person that just thinks one way and one way only, and this is the way it is, because it's not the way it is.
Yeah,
absolutely. I'm sorry, Krista, did you want to say something?
No, I was going to say, I wholeheartedly agree with Rob, and I think a lot of people, it's what they've encountered, however, I too, we know people who are strictly all about the flesh and blood. However, in my circle, they're open to listen to what others have encountered and don't ridicule you or, things like that. And that's the way it should be.
Absolutely. And experience will always outweigh an opinion.
Yep.
And good researchers, and again, this is something William and Stephen taught me early on, was that good researchers are willing to consider the experience of others, take it under consideration, keep an open mind. Just because it hasn't happened to you doesn't automatically discount it.
Like with, again, William, who I respect, he's been on the show 5 or 6 times. We don't know what they are. It's always a learning process. And I agree with that. And, I always promote all these Bigfoot conferences, and I highly recommend people go to them, because you can learn a lot of cool people. It's a great place to hang out. But I got to tell you, I've been to several, and when I've come up to several people, I'm not going to name no names, when I even suggest, and they're well-known people, you guys, they're not just, Rob, Bigfoot Rob, who's got 5 years in the field and had an encounter. And they turn their back on me when I suggest the things we've talked about today. Wow. That to me is no, and literally, I had my back turned to me at one of these, because I said, well, what about this, that, and the other? And I'm just sparking up a conversation, Daniel. That's all. Right. I want to pick their brain. What do they think? But to have someone have the gall, because they think they know it, on turn and walk away and say, if you believe in that, then you shouldn't even be at the conference. That type of attitude. See, I have no use for people like that.
Yeah, that's not acceptable, and that just makes Bigfoot research take enough scrutiny from outside the community, and attitudes like that are not acceptable. I'm very disappointed when that kind of thing happens, but we got to keep an open. I don't know for sure what a Sasquatch is. I'm not one of those people that says I do. And unfortunately, like you pointed out, if somebody says they know and they got it nailed down, then that's not somebody that you really want to take seriously.
Right.
No, I don't take them seriously, but unfortunately, they have a platform, and people will they fall in love with it and believe it like it's the Bible. And the Bible is suspect for some people, right? I mean, I don't know. Who knows about all these things that's so strange out there? And I didn't want to bring that up, but you just don't know. But what I do know is this was a fantastic show. So much more we can get over. I was kind of off my game, Daniel, because this knee has been killing me, and I'm not a baby. I'm not making excuses, but I could go on for hours, but certain things that I could take care of. But so, Daniel, really quickly though, where can we? Is there any social media? Is there anything out there that you'd like to market for people to find you, or anything?
Well, before I do that, I want to point out my partner's book, William Lunsford, Searching for the Unfindable. His search for my quest for the Arkansas Bigfoot. It is available on Amazon, of course. And I had an opportunity to read this book before it was published, and just fantastic. It's got all kinds of great stuff in there, including that Southern charm and humor that he always has. And highly recommend that people pick that up. I'm going to be doing some like additional stuff here in Alaska. If you're here in Alaska and you want to meet up and start exploring with me, I would love that. Love that opportunity. It's been difficult to connect with people up here. You can reach me in two ways. On the Sasquatch Expeditionary Group Facebook page, where I'm a moderator, or you can email me at bigfootalaska49@gmail.com. bigfootalaska49@gmail.com.
Well, this is awesome. And yeah, William Lunsford. Yes, I'm sorry. I was going to bring up William's book again. William, yeah, get that book. Fantastic book. I promoted that the other shows. And of course, Duke comes in fashionably late. Duke Sullivan. Thanks, buddy. I got Chris Mindfork. Thanks for the super stickers. Rocky, Sugar Britches, Amy, Anella. Thank you so much for your contributions. Most appreciated. I appreciate each and every single one of you stopping in today and watching. And for those of you watching later, going to be a great show. Again, thank you.
Yes,
thank you very much, Dan. This has been a fantastic show. For those joining late, go watch the replay. And Susie B, am I icing my knee? Right now, it is in a 90-degree angle. And I have to take care of my knee. For those of you coming late, I tore my meniscus. I'm contemplating still going to Las Vegas. 1:30, my plane starts. I don't think I'm going to make it. The doctor told me I'm nuts. I have to have surgery tomorrow. You know, BMR is kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy, but I'm also sensible, I guess. But with that being said, I'm very sad that I probably won't be attending. Thank you to Daniel. Thank you to Krista.
Thanks,
I'll be hosting Krista's show tonight. So, hey, I'll give you the updates later. So check the Blondes, the Booze, and the Paranormal podcast tonight, because that'll be a fantastic show. Again, thanks, Daniel. We got to get out of here. Again, thanks to each and every single one of you for tuning in. Until next time, for Brandy, for Krista and Daniel, BMR, we're out.
Thank you.